Sims, let's go.
Hello everyone, it's your girl Miracle Sims and you are watching the GSL Talk Show. Tonight we welcome back Miss Evelyn Leite and she has more information to share with us, so stay tuned.
There's no time to get my nails done. Oh, I know. I went to unwindselfcare.com and got my 100% nail polish strips. Thanks, Unwind Self-Care.
Welcome back to the GSL Talk Show. I am here with the lovely Miss Evelyn Leite. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Miracle, it's good to be with you again.
Yes, it's great to be with you as well. I'm so glad that the Lord had things working in our favor today, so at the right time, we're going to have this conversation finally. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Well, Miracle, the last time we talked, I had finished a 3-book series on my life and where I'm from.
Oh, yeah.
And now I have added a 4th book to that series. So, and it's just coming out. It'll be out the 1st of September. And I'm really excited about having that done. I grew up on a farm, middle of nowhere, with no electricity, no running water. We used an outhouse and we carried our water in a pail. We took baths on Saturday night in a round tin bathtub. And it wasn't a bad life. I don't remember that as being bad. It was just what, when you're a kid, you just adapt. But my favorite memories are we have a very large family on both sides. And in the summertime, they would just come in droves and visit us from cities and every place. And they would bring stuff we never got to see because we lived in a small farming community. They would bring watermelon and exotic fruits and all kinds of things for us to eat. And for me, it was a glorious time. For my mom, I'm sure it was a lot of hard work because we had to wash all those sheets in a wringer washer and carry all the water from the well. But I wasn't really thinking about that. I was just thinking about how much fun it was to have all those people constantly dropping in all the time. My dad came from a large family. My mother came from a large family. And my memoirs are sort of about the history of the 40s, the 50s, and then on into the 60s. And my most recent one went through the 90s.
Okay. Well, let me apologize. I mean, I guess with all the stuff that we went through last time, I forgot that you've been here before. My apologies for that. But okay, that sounds amazing. A simpler time, right? A simpler day and time. It's so interesting. You see, this kind of stuff is happening for a reason. Just yesterday, there was a storm in our area and our power went out. I feel like it's gone out multiple times this year when the storms happen and whatever. So I don't know what's going on with that. But this particular time, my son was like, I'm sick of the storm. Because it has to be at least 2 or 3 times that this has happened. Like a storm will come, power goes out, and he's like, "What?" The first time he kind of was scared, like, "What's going on? This isn't on, that isn't on," And then this time he's like, "I'm sick of the storm." And I know even at some point, me and my husband, our phones was dying, of course, and all this stuff while the power was out, and it was like, where would we be without technology, right? Where would we be without all the things that, the years and generations before us, that's how they live. It was normal. Like you just said, it was, an everyday thing for you all to, get water from the well and things of that nature. And a lot of us, I mean, I don't know, like where we would be, like as society, as people, if we did have to go back to simple living in that aspect. Like what would you say to that?
Well, having done it, I wouldn't want to do it again. But
Right.
I think some people should. I
Mm,
think children today, for sure, all they know is cell phones and computers and a lot of messages that they get, and a lot of those messages are not good.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so I feel like at one point in my life, I wanted to start a farm for troubled kids where they could learn how to pump
nice.
water and milk cows and raise a garden. And
Mhm.
that was my goal, but that's not what God had in mind for me. God said,
Oh.
no, I want you over here. Let's do, this is what I want you to do. So
Mm,
I can't, I've had lots of dreams, but I can only fulfill the ones he helps me fulfill. And I believe my story is capable of helping a lot of people because as a child, my father was an active alcoholic
mhm,
and I loved him dearly. But there were times when he was really verbally abusive, not ever physically, but he could say things that would just cut you to the quick. And
mhm,
I remember he progressively got worse. And that's how the disease of alcoholism is. In the beginning, it's kind of fun and games, but then it progressively gets worse. And my dad progressively got worse over my life. And at some point, I decided if I couldn't beat him, I would join him. So I became an alcoholic too, which made my life really worse. And I also had some demonic things going on in my life. And so that's what my books are about. It is
mm,
how I overcame all the negativity and came out on the other side. And it's only because of God, only because He was helping me all the way and telling me what to do and helping me do my writing. And it's just, I am so, so incredibly grateful to God for all the things He's done for me and my family.
wow, wow. I mean, hey, you never know. Maybe later on you can still get the farm together because I do believe that that's even if they are inspired by the book as well, like if the book kind of enlightens people in that regard about, again, the simple living and life and whatnot. Um, Either way, whether you get a chance to do it or if it's just because of the book, I feel like it's definitely a powerful thing, a much needed thing too, because a lot of us, and myself included, right, don't really know much about the basics. Like if we did have to go back to, I mean, well, because the Bible tells us about a time where we can't buy and sell and all this type of stuff. So what are we going to do? And so I have been kind of thinking about like, well, what if I would like try to get a little place and have it off grid, as much as possible, and like all these different types of things. But there's just certain skills that a lot of us aren't familiar with, like the gardening and let alone the taking care of the animals and all that type of stuff as well. And so I get it. I know you're like, I wouldn't want to go back. And I understand because there's a lot of things that are obviously that we take for granted, by being so, I guess, living in luxury compared to the generations before us. But then on the flip side,
No,
there's just
no.
something special
I
going,
think the luxury is having a family. And
Mm,
even though my life was upside down and confusing sometimes, I had a family and we were
mm,
very close. And my parents' families were, they were the ones who came and descended on us every summer. And
mhm,
that doesn't happen so much. Now you go to a restaurant, you see a mom on her cell phone, a dad on his cell phone, and the kids playing games. It's like,
mhm.
where's the family?
That's true. That's so true. Like even with, like I said, what happened last night, it did bring us back a little closer because it's like, okay, well, let's open up the window, let's eat dinner by the window and whatnot because the power's out and stuff like that. You know, when we probably would have been like separate in our own little things and stuff. And so, you know, sometimes things happen for a reason, but you're right. There's definitely the dynamic between family has definitely changed, and you know, hopefully we can get some of that back. You know, as we continue on and whatnot. I think it also is powerful the different things that you were sharing about, you know, your family and you know, your father in particular, and then, you know, you as well and whatnot. When it comes to the alcoholism and maybe even the verbal abuse, you know, I've been through some mental and verbal abuse as well. And some people don't realize just how much that can have an effect on someone. Sometimes possibly even worse than physical. I mean, you know, not trying to compare the two and be like, oh, one's, you know, better or something like that. But it can still have just as much of a detrimental effect on people, you know, mentally and things like that. Do you want to kind of touch on that and maybe?
I think verbal abuse can be worse than physical abuse because, and I've been a counselor now for 40 years. I work mostly with women, trying to help them overcome their past. But verbal abuse leaves an unseen scar. Physical abuse will have black and blue spots. If you tell somebody you're being physically abused, they will say, get out, leave, call the cops. If you tell somebody you're being verbally abused, they'll come up with all kinds of, won't answer them back, or do this or do that. No, they don't really understand the scars that verbal abuse leaves on a soul and on a heart. And it took me years to get over my verbal abusive. Well, and then I married a batterer. And that's what happens when you grow up in a dysfunctional home. You don't get better, you get worse. Unless there's an intervention of some kind. And God can always intervene in that. I do know of exceptions to that rule where people who have been severely abused have found a really good marriage, but that's not the norm.
Yeah, and then I know you even spoke of like having some demonic activity and whatnot, and I think we don't think about that side, that when we open the doors to certain things, like again, maybe it started with the verbal abuse and it started with, you know, your father's alcoholism and whatnot, and then perhaps it sounds like, you know, when you got into it as well, is that when you started to see you know, demonic activity and whatnot as well, or how was that transition?
Well, I always heard voices, even from a small child.
Oh, okay.
But they weren't horrible. They were just like a radio playing in my head sometimes. But as I got older and started inquiring, let me back up. When I was a child, my father told me at the age of 7 that if I fought with my brothers, God would come and take one of them away from me. And at the age of 9, my baby brother died. From that point on, I was in a battle with God, a power struggle, if you will. I yelled at him and screamed at him, and it's not that I didn't believe in him. I didn't think he believed in me. And so the power struggle was on, and I was determined he wasn't going to hurt anybody I loved. So I was constantly trying to protect people from God. And, you know, it was a big job. I couldn't do it.
Right.
But then later on in life, I started seeking God, and that's when the demonic voices really came out.
Right.
And
Not happy about that.
I started thinking about sharing my story, and the more I tried to seek God, the worse my life became for a while. And then I sobered up. I mean, I wasn't most people don't know that you can be an alcoholic and only drink once a year. Or you can be an alcoholic and drink every 6 months. And it's what you call binge drinking. So a lot of people don't know that it's not how often you drink, it's how much you drink. When you drink. And alcohol, for a lot of us, once it hits our brain, there's no stopping us. And because I was a responsible employee and a responsible mother, I'd have to plan my drinking, which is one of the first signs of alcoholism. If you have to plan your drinking so that nobody's going to be in your way and nobody's going to get hurt, and you don't have any responsibilities, that's one of the first signs of alcoholism. Because normal people don't plan their drinking. They do it or they don't. And they can have a glass of wine or not. But not me. One glass led to a whole bottle. So a lot of people don't understand this disease. As many years as we've been talking about it, there are still people that don't understand it.
So I guess that's with a lot of things, right? If we're not going through something personally, or maybe if we don't know someone that's going through it or whatnot, it's just kind of foreign to us and whatnot. And so do you feel like the people that don't know or don't understand, do you feel like judgment from them or something like that? Or like, how does that make you feel when it comes to people not understanding, this lifestyle or challenge?
Well, I've gotten past any particular feelings I had about that a long time ago. I do have to say, though, that my books are on addiction and demonic issues and my anger at God and the ways that I had to struggle to overcome those things. And I need to say that a lot of Christian women's groups did not welcome me because the judgmental stigma that goes with alcoholism.
Wow.
And that I get, that just happens. It is, get away from me, you might be catching, or how could you do such a thing? What kind of woman are you? I mean, I did get some of that. But
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I'm just so sorry to hear that, and I think that's again one of the things that, we're all human, we all fall short, so no one's perfect and everything. But I think that's supposed to even the playing field at the end of the day. Whatever those ladies are going through is no worse than the things that you were going through. And we've all sinned and fallen short, and so I don't really fully understand that why we are like that. I guess we're just like that as humans, and then it just transfers into Christians being like that as well, because Christians are humans, X, Y, and Z. But on the flip side, it's like, I don't get it. Like I say this all the time, so people probably tired of me saying it, but I mean, it's like we appreciate when the grace and mercy is for us. The grace and mercy that God gives to us, we love it, we appreciate it, we're thankful. We know what we've been through, we know what we did, all of that type of stuff. We know that we lay before the feet of Christ, and it's gone, X, Y, and Z. But on the flip side, we don't want to give that to nobody else, and I don't understand that. So, and I'm grateful, right, that you are here today, still a believer in that we can sit here and have this conversation, because a lot of the times when people act like that and do things like that, it just turns people away from Christ, and because they like, oh, well, if this is what it's about, then I don't want no parts. So I'm glad that somehow you were able to separate, God from the people. But we as the people, a body of Christ, we need to be doing and being a better representation of what we claim to believe. But that's a whole nother conversation. But I'm so sad to hear that you experienced that.
I completely agree that we as a people need to do more to encourage people. And it's hard not to be judgmental. I think a lot of it is what you're taught as a child, because we carry those childhood teachings into our adulthood. And sooner or later, though, we need to be willing to give up those things and grow up. We'd be amazed at the number of people who aren't willing to give up those early teachings and aren't willing to grow up. They think they're just fine the way they are. and they actually are just fine the way they are. However, they can tend to be very judgmental, and that's very hurtful.
Girl, listen, don't get me started on that. That's one of my pet peeves. People trying to act like they, they say that all the time, like, oh, I can't change or X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, just be honest and say that you don't want to change. You can. You just don't want to.
Yep.
And but anyway, like I said, that's a pet peeve of mine. Because I'm like, I'm a living witness that you can change your life out here. Like, and even if you're making a small change, right? And sometimes it's best for us to do that because, like you said, holding on to whatever idea or tradition that isn't Christ-like or biblically, the way that we should go. I mean, sometimes, again, there's a lot of things that we have to lay down along the way to truly walk the walk, but people struggle because we want to do what we want to do. That's how I guess I just kind of.
I feel like I have been really, really blessed. God put people in my life all the way. Every step of the way, He put somebody in my life to help me keep going. On the time, I mean, I was actually suicidal several times. In fact, once I tried it. And what I did was my first husband was drinking heavily and very abusive. And so I decided, okay, I've had enough of this. And I walked down the street. And my plan was to step in front of a truck because you don't have a chance if you step in front of a truck. So I was watching for a truck to come and I was standing on the corner and I was waiting for that truck to get just the right spot. And I stepped out in the street and all of a sudden I heard, "Mama, Mama." And I turned around thinking, how did my child get here? And the truck went zoom. Just missed me. And I walked home because my child wasn't anywhere near. He was at home.
Wow.
And so that was the end of that. It's not the last time I thought about it, but it's the last time I tried it. And I've got lots of stories like that in my book. But anyway, God has interceded in my life so much, and He's put such wonderful people in my life. From time to time, always what I need shows up. But here's the thing I've learned about God. He might show it up for you, but if you don't grab it, it's not going to help. Just like He put some really, really good therapists in my life. But if I hadn't been willing to grab onto them, it wouldn't have helped. And I think so many people, they totally forget they have a responsibility to grab what's handed out. They want to question it. Are they good? Can I afford it? And I went broke so many times paying for therapists and paying for help that I couldn't afford but knew I needed. And so one of the things I've done is start a nonprofit to try to help people. COVID kind of did it in. And so but I hope to get it up and running again one of these days. Because there are so many people that need to grab on to what's God offering them without questioning. I think the questioning is what does us in.
Yes, man. What a powerful testimony that was. I appreciate your transparency about all of that because, again, unfortunately, we know that you're not the only one that's dealing with, those type of thoughts and things like that. And you definitely have to be at a place where you're like, especially that kind of way to do it as well. I mean, you definitely have to be in a I hate to say low place or dark place or however you would describe it to be, to consider and to actually be in the, in the midst of or thick of, actually doing it. So I'm glad. I don't know so was it an actual child that you heard or was it just,
no, it was a voice. There was nobody there.
There was no one. So
There was no
you know,
children anywhere near. And
wow.
it was my son's voice.
Hmm. Well, to God be the glory for intervening in that. And I know it made, when you talked about the interventions and whatnot, in that testimony that you just shared, it reminded me of what you were saying earlier. But unfortunately now I forgot exactly how you said it, but basically it kind of was I guess you were talking about like the different things in your life. I don't know. I'm sorry, it went away. I just thinking so much about how powerful that testimony was. I'm sorry, but anywho, maybe we'll talk about it if it's meant to be. But yeah, I'm just moved. I'm moved by that, and I'm glad again that you're here to live to tell the testimony about the different things you've experienced and whatnot, and even that organization. I think prayerfully that you'll get that back going, because I definitely know that there's definitely a lot of people out there dealing with mental health issues, but they're not getting the help they need. And a lot of time it does come down to finances and whatnot as well. So hopefully that's something that the Lord allows you to, see again.
The recent book that I've just finished, can I show you a picture of it?
A Search for Sanity. All right. I can't see the bottom part, but okay, one step at a time. Amen. Yes.
So this book is a detailed story of how hard I searched, how much I wanted to be okay, how many roadblocks Satan put in my life, and how many opportunities God put in my life, and how many times I chose the wrong thing because I was looking for a easier, better way, softer way to get better without having to do the hard work, and that never worked. So I'm hoping that once I get this book published, I will be able to furnish it to women's shelters and various places where people are struggling, and they need to know that someone else has struggled and has made it. And I really have made it, and I'm so incredibly grateful for that. So one of the things I'm hoping to do is raise money through my nonprofit to give this book away to prisons, women's shelters. And that's going to be a whole nother year's work.
Well, the work continues, right? Every day, there's no period to life until the very end. So, I mean, there's always going to be something to do.
Well, I'm at an age where all my friends are playing pinochle at the senior center. But
well, that's you, ma'am. You out here kicking and writing and all kinds of things. And honestly, we need y'all's wisdom, like those again that have come before us. Unfortunately, we are in a time where it seems like our generation isn't paying attention to the wisdom that our elders have. But I guess we start to realizing when certain people or members are gone. But I'm glad that you are able to document it and getting your story out here and things like that. I mean, I'm sure, your children and everyone else would, greatly appreciate all these things that you're doing.
Well, I know they appreciate all the hard work that I have done. And they respect that I have struggled. And I hope that I've set a good example for, for having to just hang on to God and pull through.
You mentioned earlier that you feel like you've made it. And I think, I know I've kind of struggled sometimes with, or at least I know that in this time of my life, I'm looking at success and all this type of stuff much differently than I probably was maybe in my 20s or whatever like that. And so I'm curious to know, like, what does making it look like to you, or what is it looking like to you? Because you feel like you have made it, right? And so I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I think in order to appreciate the thinking of having made it, you have to understand how it is to hurt so bad when you go to bed at night that you can't sleep, and to wake up in the morning full of regret and calling yourself names and looking in the mirror and saying mean, horrible things to yourself because you're not where you want to be, or you're not who you think you want to be, and realizing that your life maybe is a mistake because everything is going wrong and nothing. And even though there were little victories along the way, there was always those voices. There was always that stuff going on that was and being a very empathetic person, I was always empathizing with other people who were hurt. So I was not only taking on my own pain, I was taking on other people's pain, which is, that's what you do when you're codependent. And we haven't talked about that, but maybe we will someday. But so now I sleep and I feel more joy. I mean, having made it for me means I'm restful, I'm peaceful, I feel a lot of joy. I don't have those voices in my head anymore telling me that I'm a horrible, nasty failure. And that for me is what making it means. It's not about money. Mm-hmm. It's about peace of mind and joy in life. And I can't tell you, I've already talked to 2 of my kids this morning. I talk to them about 3 times a week. I have 3 grown sons. The joy that I feel when they call just to say, hi, Mom. And we talk about everything with my family. There was no talking about anything important. We didn't share feelings. Sex was a dirty word. There was there was just no sharing of the heart in my family growing up. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I have that with my children to a point. And I feel so grateful for them.
That's good. That's good. That's a beautiful thing. And see, I don't know if it just comes with wisdom or whatever the case is, but like I said, there's definitely, I think when we start to see success as what the Bible says success is and what God says success is, or even where our elders like you or whatever the case is are saying that success is, at the end of the day, we can start to have more joy and peace and whatnot in life because we're stressing out all the time about, paying a bill or making this money or whatever it is, right? And I know I was talking about this on the juice this morning that basically, these are things that God says he already has covered for us. What we eat, what we dress, what we're going to wear, all these things we don't have to worry about. And we spend so much time stressing and worrying about those very things. And so I appreciate you sharing that, what you feel like is your not just success, but your sorry, the word I just went away from my mind. But I was just thinking about so many other things I want to ask you. It's like she said, I got to get some more wisdom here. So I am curious to how you went from feeling like you had to protect people from God to now being this advocate for the Lord. Like, I mean, you don't have to get too deep because I know it's probably a long story and everything, but like, what was the transition like?
Well, it was slow over the years, of course, but one major thing happened. And I always went to as many workshops as I could to learn everything I could about families and helping families and helping myself primarily. But when I was a little girl, when I was 9 years old, we had a hired man that tried to molest me. And we were in a car. I mean, my mother was in the hospital. My dad was in the hospital visiting my mother, and I was in the car with the hired man. And he was telling me all this nasty stuff that 9-year-olds don't need to hear. And my dad came out and interrupted it. So he said to me very quickly, when you guys go to the movies tonight, you don't go in. You go around to the back and I'll meet you there. And so my dad got in the car. We stopped at a service station, bought gas for 25 cents a gallon. And he bought me a pinwheel. You know what that is? It's you on a stick. And
Yeah.
so the window was open and the pinwheel was going around and around. And I thought it was the prettiest thing I had ever seen. And I didn't get very many gifts because we didn't have much money. And so I have this pinwheel, and all of a sudden it flies out the window. And the hired man turns around and he looks at me and he said, "Stop crying, you big baby." And I thought, all right, I'll show you. I'm not meeting you anywhere. So that's that part of the story. All right. So years later, I am in this workshop with a very, very talented man who is working with me about Jesus and God. And we've taught, and I'm so angry at Jesus. I'm so angry. And it shows. My anger stands out all over the place. And so he's asking me, "Why are you so angry with God?" So I said to him, "Because he did this, he did that, he did this, and he did that, and he put me here and he put me there." And I'm just furious. So the counselor stops and he said, "Evelyn, do you see Jesus anywhere?" And I looked to my right and there was Jesus. And this is the words he said to me: "Who do you think made your pinwheel fly out the window?" I had never mentioned that to anyone ever. And right then and there, I was convicted. The peace that took over my body was so amazing. And from that point on, I was his advocate and not his enemy. And I gave up the power struggle.
Man, listen, Miss Evelyn, you know, look, now this is the second time you done did this to me in this station, at least. Because I'm like, wow, what an amazing, and that's just the power of God. Like, we don't pay attention to the things, right? Because I guess it's just like that painting the footprint in the sand, right? We think we're alone and we don't think he's there. And then just that little reminder. I don't know. That was powerful to me. I don't know if that. Hopefully the other people are receiving it the same way. I'm sorry.
It couldn't have come from anywhere else because no one else knew. Only God and I knew that. No one else.
Wow. That's good. That's just, again, just one of those reminders of, like, but see, that could have easily been ignored. You know what I mean? Like, even the feeling that you felt in your heart at that child saying, you know, because of what the gentleman, will just say that, said, or whatever the case is, you know, things happening for a reason, to put that on your heart and mind to not go, because who knows, right? Even with the things that has happened in your life, who knows where that would have taken you, right? To have been molested and to have been, you know, taken advantage of as a child and whatnot. Like, who knows what that guy would have done and things like that. It's just, he protects us. He's there and prevents a lot of things. And I think sometimes we forget about the prevention being protection as well.
I think so too. Yep.
Ooh, Lord. All right. So
full of stories like that. And that's why I really felt the need to share them. I know a lot of people have a lot of stories, but they don't always share them. And so they don't, no one else hears them.
And, you know I talk about this all the time as well, about our, you know, testimonies being powerful and blessings and whatnot can be coming from that. And I think that's why the enemy tries to keep us from sharing, right? From sharing our testimony or sharing the things that God has done. Maybe making light of it, maybe thinking like, oh, that's not a big deal or whatever the case is. But it could be huge. Like I said, even just the two testimonies that resonate in my heart and mind right now with what you just shared, it, to me, huge, because it allowed me to, again, see that small way that Christ was there in your life, right, that we could have easily ignored. So again, I hope that whoever listens and watches this, that this will touch and prick their heart as it's done mine, because it's and you say your book is full of things like this. But see, that's the thing too. And I don't know, I feel like maybe that's why God made me this way, they call me Miracle now, and I'm rather small. And I said, maybe God made me this way for a reason, because little miracles, don't overlook the little miracles, y'all.
My life is full of small miracles.
Yeah, the small miracles are, just important and powerful as the huge ones. And we think, like, I know people question all the time about, like, I guess the miracles in the Bible. I'm like, well, that type of stuff isn't happening now. Who's to say? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you probably just ignoring it, you're thinking it's an everyday thing.
Yeah, that's what I am always telling my kids, reach for it. Don't let discouragement stop you. Go for it. Reach for it. Because I have learned that the only way to keep going up and get more and more connected to God is reach for the opportunities he offers you. And I really believe that God offers us a lot of opportunities daily, but we don't reach for them. A lot, some of us don't think we're worthy. Some of us let ourselves get too caught up in making money. Some of us let ourselves just think, well, he didn't pay attention to me, But I always encourage them to reach for the sky, reach for it.
And it sounded like my mom. She always told me that as well. Reach for the sky, and then when you get there, reach for the stars. We do, X, Y, and Z. Now, here I am today, Mom. Thank you. I feel like I've been doing that in a variety of ways. She's probably shocked as well. Some of the things. I feel like God has been shocking me about the different things I've been able to, I guess, accomplish, or whatever the case is. I don't even look at it like that. I just feel like I'm just out here just trying to use my gifts and every way or whatnot. And I think it's amazing too what you just said, because it reminds me of what I studied this morning for Bible or whatever, or the juice, y'all know it, the daily dose of inspiration. I was talking about distractions this morning, and there's a lot of things that is trying to distract us from maybe the blessings, or maybe just, again, the opportunities that you mentioned earlier. So
I really think that Satan will throw roadblocks in our way. When I stopped drinking, I went to treatment. And when I got out of treatment, everything that could possibly happen happened. We got audited by the IRS. We had a car wreck. We had sickness. I broke my hip. Just constantly things to try to get me to go back to drinking. That's what I felt like was happening. It's like, because a person can drink over any of those things. And I was just felt so strongly that these things are happening, so I'll drink again. But for 43 years, I never have.
That's good. I'm sorry, I'm making notes now, so I won't forget what to ask you. Because I was like, I was forgetting earlier. I was like, I got stuff to ask. So that reminds me, actually, a little bit. I don't know if it's exactly the question I had before, but it reminds me of a question I have for you. Because you touched on earlier that when you feel like when you came to Christ, right, there was more problems. You just gave an example as well. Like, you feel like, making that transition of stop drinking, then like all the things was flooding and trying to get in your way, the stumbling blocks trying to get you back to where you were. Now, obviously, it seems like you have a strong, level of discernment to know that was just an attack from the enemy trying to get you going down that path. But I just think it's very important, and again, another powerful testimony to share with people that when we come to Christ, that doesn't mean that things are going to be perfect, peaches and cream. You're never going to have any issues in life, but it does mean that you can look at those issues and look at those things differently, right? You can still have peace, of hope, and all those things in the midst of the adversity. So, do you have anything to share in regards to that, or testimony, whatever the case may be? Like, am I saying something accurate here, or I don't know? I don't want to put words in your mouth. She's like, I didn't say that.
I do think that there is a sort of a belief out there, like Job's wife. If if you're doing what you're supposed to do, then this wouldn't be happening to you. And I do think that does come, and it comes. I mean, the thing we have to be careful of is that it doesn't come from us. And I have been, I've had a lot of therapists, a lot of ministers that I've worked with because of all my anger and all the things that went on. And so many times they've directed me, go read Job, go to the Bible, read Job. And one time in my life, I decided I wanted to know Jesus as a person. And so I got a client had given me a brand new Bible that I'd never opened. And it kind of laid on the table. And I picked it up and I thought, okay, I want to know who he is. So I started reading from the New Testament, and it's like reading a novel. And it does reveal. I mean, before I refused to read it because it was too hard. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but now if at reading it like I was reading a novel, it just made so much sense. And I was really into it. It was really like, oh, this is what he said. I wish I could be that smart. I wish I could come up with, whoever hasn't sinned, cast the first stone. Why can't I come up with smart things like that? Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean,
your question, but
no. Yeah, it's fine because again, I think even with what you shared earlier answered my question. I just didn't know if you had any more things to add to that. But I think what I did just receive from what you just shared was that you definitely had the right type of counsel, because again, people just can go anywhere and get advice and whatnot, and then find themselves in a worse state than when they came to the person or whatever the case is. So
very difficult.
Thank God for, like you said, the individuals that was in your life to speak into your life and pour into you the right type of counsel, leading you to the word and everything like that. That obviously piqued your curiosity enough to say, I want to get into there for myself. I know I had to do that as well. What I found, I shared this testimony, so sorry if y'all hear it again. But what I found with me is that, I would grow up, I would read all the time, but anytime I tried to read the Bible, I would go to sleep. So in my 20s, I really just decided to just hunker down on this idea of, you know what, I'm going to read this thing because this doesn't make any sense. I'm always somebody that's reading books, getting done with books and stuff like that. So why is it when it comes to this particular book, I'm struggling or whatever the case is? Now, I did my first time, tackling this idea of reading the entire Bible. I ended up reading a teen version, which kind of broke things down in a way for me to, get the, like you said, the novel-esque side, but then also get like a little bit more deeper information on the sides and whatnot, because they would, write in information and going deeper about certain things. And then after that, now I do my studies like every day, and I'm more so focused on the King James and whatnot. But still, I guess it's what God wants us to do at the end of the day, like to get to know him, to spend time with him. He has done all these things for us to build this relationship with him. And we can't be believers without that, right? We can't sit here and say that, oh, I believe, and you don't really even know who he is. So, yeah, and he definitely, I don't know if it's just because I know someone told me some years ago, I think, I'm an actor and whatnot. And so I was doing this show, and I guess I was doing this monologue, and I had added in some humor that I guess normally would, or maybe the writer or whoever didn't necessarily see the humor when they wrote it, but then the way I performed it added some type of humor to it and whatnot. And she's like, you can add humor to anything type of thing. And I guess I'm telling you that part is because a lot of time when I read about like things that Jesus said or whatever, I've been inspired to kind of like do something with that, because I feel like not that I just think he's funny. I mean, I think he probably could, he probably did deliver some lines or some of the things that are written about what he said in a humorous way. But I think I just can imagine, like, him standing there with the disciples, telling them over and over and over the same thing. And he's like, how much longer I got to be with y'all for you to see what I'm saying? Like, I mean, and just all those different type of things. Like, I guess it just plays out in my mind. Like, I think about even Elijah is another, like, it was a funny moment for me when I read it again, or in that time, because it just was like seeing him there heckling, basically is what he was doing to those other prophets. He's like, oh, well, maybe your God is asleep right now. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe you should try this, try that, And I'm just imagining that all playing out. And I mean, not just say it's a beautiful read, but I mean, it is. Like, maybe get into the word. You just never know. Like, you might find it entertaining alongside of getting the wisdom, if you open your heart and mind to it. I think we're so closed and maybe intimidated by all the words, but it's really a good read when you read it.
If you read it with a curiosity.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know I can sit here and talk to you and everything like that, and I don't want to be long your time. But is there anything else you would like to share with us before you go?
I don't think so. I think that I really appreciate you, Miracle, and you're such a bright spark of life. And I mean, you just come across as being so full of light. And I'm grateful that I get a chance to talk with you.
Oh, that's just not that busy, Evelyn. I feel the same way. I'm so glad, like I said, that things worked in our favor today and that we had this conversation. It feels like it was right on time, obviously, as always. So thank you, Lord, for divine appointments. I definitely want to share with the people, where to find you, your information, your books, everything like that.
All right. All of my books are on Amazon except the latest one, which will be out September 1st. And I have an email address, and I give away some small pamphlets. If anyone is interested and they want to email me, they can go to my website, which is www.evelynleite.com. And the pamphlets are about alcoholism, how it feels to be an alcoholic. They're about codependence, how it feels to gain your self-worth. Those kinds of, they're not very long. They're like 30 pages, but I will have those that people can choose from, and they will be absolutely free.
Well, I appreciate you today, ma'am. You have, bestowed a wealth of wisdom to me today. I hope that anyone, again, that's listening to this, that they have grabbed the gems that you dropped. Truly, truly appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, Miracle. Thank you.
You got to come back with codependency, you said. So,
yeah, I'd love to do some time on codependency. That's a very, very important and powerful subject.
All right. Well, listen, y'all comment below and tell us to bring Miss Evelyn back. So she got to teach us now about codependency now.
Thank you, Miracle.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching the GSL Talk Show, and thank you to Miss Evelyn for joining us tonight. I hope that you all caught those gems that she was dropping. She really, truly pricked my heart tonight, and I hope that she did the same with you all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and check out Miss Evelyn and her endeavors. Good night.